Hello and welcome to Positive Parenting. I'm Deanne Conrad, Community Relations Supervisor for the Sioux Falls School District. Positive Parenting is a joint venture between the education professionals of the Sioux Falls School District and the medical and child development professionals of Sanford Health. We're glad you're joining us today where we're talking about your children and sleep, how much is necessary, whether you have a 6-month-old, a 6-year-old, a 16-year-old, it always seems like sleep is an issue and can cause some significant issues if children aren't getting enough sleep. So we'll be talking about that today. We've have some guests joining us to help us in that conversation, and we will ask them to introduce themselves. And first of all, Molly, go ahead.
I'm Molly Satter, and I'm the Health Services Supervisor for the Sioux Falls School District.
I'm Celeste Bureau, the Student Support Services Coordinator with the Sioux Falls School District.
And I'm Tracy Jones. I'm one of the pediatricians that works at Sanford.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for being here today to talk about that topic of sleep. Did everyone have a good night's sleep last night?
Yes.
I was in bed the proper amount of time, but I'm not sure it was good sound sleep throughout the night. You know, one of the children was up and, you know, different things going on throughout the night. So I guess that's the way it is. But the topic of sleep is one that I think anybody, any age can relate to. There are some guidelines about the appropriate amount of sleep for children, and we'll just start off with those basics. What do children need?
You know, it depends on age, and so our younger children obviously need more sleep than some of the older children, and so infants and toddlers need 12 plus hours of sleep at night. But as you get older, the requirement reduces just a little bit, and so between toddlers and young children up to age adolescence, most of our teenagers require at least 8 hours of sleep at night. Obviously the goal would be to have 8 to 10 hours of sleep, but 8 is a minimum.
8, that's a big chunk of time for a teenager or an adolescent to devote to sleep. There are other things that need to be done in that time, like video games and things. Right, I'm not being honest here. I'm just playing what my children, the card my children would play. But what kinds of issues do we see in schools when we notice that children do not have the required number of hours of sleep? I mean, what sort of symptoms present themselves when kids don't have enough sleep?
Obviously, they're not on their peak for their academic achievements, so you might see that a lot of times in their assignments. Something that they're good at, that they normally get a good grade at, they miss, or it's a real sloppy mistake they might make, like on a math problem, and it's just because the sharpness isn't there, because they don't have that sleep that they've had. So a lot of times we'll see an impact in just their academics.
Mm-hmm. So the paper that came home for my daughter recently, where 3 of the items were not completed, may have been her lack of attentiveness to detail on that day. And it might have been because of sleep. Not saying. And medically there are some issues that can surface as well.
Sure, absolutely. Anytime that you're not getting enough sleep, your overall health is affected. So then you can be more prone to being run down, picking up viruses, illnesses, just things like that, and just overall not feeling well. So sometimes we see kids come into the health office who just have a general complaint of just not feeling well, or it maybe has manifested into some other physical complaint, and then after further discussion you might learn that they are not getting enough sleep. They might be having their sleep interrupted at night for a variety of reasons. So it can really make a difference in the overall health.
Absolutely. So how much of an issue is it when you're seeing patients? Is that something you're inquiring about when they present with various illnesses? Like, what kind of sleep are you getting, or what kind of questions are telling for you as a physician?
For every child that comes into our clinic for just their routine well visit, that is something that all providers generally ask, just to see how the bedtime routine is, how many hours of sleep at night they're getting, what time they go to bed, what time they wake up, and then how that may also impact their school performance. So what kind of what kind of grades they're getting, are there issues at school, are there behavior concerns, and how that may all tie into the amount of sleep or the quality of sleep that they're getting.
Well, let's talk about the routine and the necessity of a routine. Is it necessary to have, and what is a best practice in terms of bedtime routines?
You know, routines I think are much easier when children are younger because you don't have as many after-school activities, you don't have the sports, you don't have all of the homework that is coming home with the students, and so to be able to establish that routine at a younger age, I think just sets up a great environment for both the child and the parent as they start to graduate into those older grades and into high school years. But bedtime routines are just the first thing that I think any of us will talk about with children as well as their parents if there is some sort of concern as far as how much sleep somebody's getting. Children thrive off of routines, and so to be able to help establish that at home, make sure that it's similar timing every night as far as what we're going to do and what exactly those activities are, just helps set up the child to know that sleep is coming and it's time, you know, to start winding down and getting ready to go to bed.
Right, and those routines, you know, some people take time to read at the end of the night, or, you know, just have that quiet conversation. How was your day? Let's talk about, you know, your favorite part of the day, that type of thing. What does that do to a body to, I mean, it causes us to relax and become a little more in tune with sleeping, right?
Yes, it definitely does, and it kind of, I think, helps wind down or kind of turn your brain off so you can stop thinking about the list of all of those activities you may have to do. And so the same goes for adults as children, you know, turning off the TV, turning off the iPad, turning off the video games, and really dedicating those, you know, minutes before bed, half an hour to an hour, to really focus on something else and do quiet, calm activities to allow yourself to prepare for sleep.
A lot of kids that I hear, my own kids as friends, will talk about having a television in their room, or, you know, the electronics and things like that. We probably hear that more often than not when kids are just telling us what's going on, but that sort of stimulation is really an issue, or can be an issue for kids.
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, there's definitely been studies that have been done. The light that's transmitted from the TV can definitely cause your brain to become more stimulated and awake, as opposed to what we're trying to do, which is wind down and go to sleep. And so if we hear of children having TVs in their rooms, playing video games before bed, having an iPad that they're looking at, or playing games on those, are generally the first things that we ask parents to take out of the room. Adolescents, cell phones are a big issue, so making sure that we leave the cell phones you know, in a community space in the house and not in the bedroom, because again, trying to watch TV before bed can definitely do the opposite effect of what some people think that it may do.
And then when we do have those issues, if we hear about them, how are schools relaying that information to parents, or encouraging them to provide the best case scenario for their child's sleep? I mean, is there information sharing that happens?
I would say our school nurses, when they visit with a child that comes in, and for example, if they come across the fact that maybe sleep is an issue at home, that there's conversations they have with parents, and along the lines of what the doctor has mentioned, just those best practices of reducing the screen time, establishing a routine, those types of things, just encouraging families to follow those practices. One other thing that I think is important to mention, the importance of exercise and physical activity during the day is a great factor in making sure students get a good night's sleep. It just makes them that much more tired at the end of the day. And so that physical activity is also important, and so we encourage families in that as well.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. Possibility of overextending, though, as well, if you have one activity after another, and yes, family is guilty of that, where, you know, my son will have 2 practices for different sports back to back on the same night. So, I mean, is that healthy in that they're getting the activity and the exercise, or what is the point of exhaustion? I mean, when do you hit the point of exhaustion?
I think that that's something that all families just have to take a look at and monitor if their child is even enjoying being in all of those activities, because sometimes they just overextend themselves and then they don't know when to say no, and then they've already committed to an activity. And so I think, you know, understanding if the child is really enjoying what they're doing, and if that's the case and they're able to participate in their daily activities, they're able to stay awake until dinner time and get to bed on time. You know, I think participation in sports and organized activities are great, but yes, there is a threshold where too many is too many, and just really being able to decide if those after school activities are really affecting their schoolwork and their academics, and if they can't perform the next day, then it may be a good idea to kind of look at what's most important to the child, and is there something we can eliminate.
Right, paring down and making it at least sustainable, so you're not driving yourself and each other crazy as you're driving back and forth from one activity to the other. Wondering about, we hit a rough patch probably a year ago with my daughter that was not, you know, she just couldn't fall asleep at night. And we did everything in terms of basic routine, no TV, you know, those types of things. And there were just a lot of things, I think, worry and stress that were, you know, she just couldn't let go of some of the situational things with friends and things like that. So you start looking at, gosh, you hear melatonin for sleep. You know, what else can we do medically, or with a you know, a pill or anything like that we can help her relax and calm down. How much of that do you suggest, or what do you suggest for parents whose children are having a difficult time falling asleep, and maybe they followed this routine and tried to work through things?
You know, I think routine's the first thing that we talk about, and so if families have been very diligent about trying to implement that and we're still not seeing the sleep becoming better for the child, then we have to kind of decide, are there other factors playing into it? Exactly like you said, there's sometimes a lot of outside stimuli or things that they're thinking about before bed, and they just don't have the mechanism to kind of shut that off and go to sleep. You know, melatonin, I think, is a good option, especially for the onset of sleep. So that's something that can help people get to sleep. It doesn't necessarily help them stay asleep. And so if that's the biggest issue, then I think melatonin is a safe and effective option. But I think if there's a big anxiety component or something else going on in their lives, then that's something that we maybe need to try to fix with some other stuff, as opposed to just giving them a medication before bed. Most providers have access to counselors or behavioral health therapists, people that can meet with these individuals, figure out what those things are that are stressors in their life, and then provide them some really effective ways at home that don't mean that we have to medicate the child,
Right.
but can offer them other ways to kind of wind down, to kind of tease some of those things out, and really provide them with the skills and the resources necessary to get to sleep. And then obviously we can talk about the medication options as well, if that's needed.
Necessary.
Yeah.
Well, the school counselor, a lot of times situations present themselves if there's a friendship issue or concern about, do I belong? Am I popular? Am I not popular? Those are really tough things for kids in their late elementary, early middle school, and even you know, in every other grade level as well. What are some of the things the counselors, they have small group meetings they can have, and things
and they
like
can
that.
meet with them individually and talk through what their difficulties are, and parents can reach out to counselors as well to say, hey, you know, I'm noticing they're having some trouble sleeping at night, they're having some trouble with a friend, and then they can work that through right there at the school. A lot of times I always think too, when we're talking about anxieties and different things like that, our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviors are all interconnected. And so that's what the counselors do a lot in school, is just kind of getting at the root of the issue, because it might be someone's having trouble sleeping for a number of reasons. What they have uncover could be that they're worried about a friend, and that friend might text late at night, and so we're just geared to notifications if that phone's on to just pick it up. So then that person's lack of sleep is also affecting another person's lack of sleep. And then the counselors can reach out to parents to say, hey, I'm seeing a connection here. Maybe what we need to do is have you have the phones not in the rooms, you know, at night, so that they can work together and we can work on it here at school. So it's that constant kind of problem solving that they can do when it comes to that.
A lot of information sharing. I mean, as a parent, you think, well, they're having trouble sleeping at night. It's, you know, it's my issue. I might not think about reaching out to, you know, someone to help at the school level, but perhaps the situation that's causing the sleep deprivation is as a result of something happening at school or through friends.
Absolutely. So the school's working at it, home's working at it, and that just kind of makes the child feel better about it too, I believe, because they're working on it all the time. Because a lot of times when the issues are coming up that they stress about at night, that's when they have time to decompress and just think about it. And so when you're at school, if there is a time they can go down, like a directed studies, or even during a time of recess time, when they can go and talk to the counselor, it can be very quick, matter of fact, and they can put it aside, and then they're not worried about it at night. So that's kind of our goal.
Yeah, and lots of resources, counselor, but the nurse plays a role in that kind of thing too. If there's something that they feel like they need to discuss, any adult really.
A lot of times students do come to the school nurse. They're a trusted individual in the schools, and so they will reach out to a nurse, and then the nurse can in turn connect the counselor if that's appropriate, and that happens often that they work together on some of those types of issues. So yeah, it really is a team effort. And one of the other things as nurses that we see oftentimes that makes a difference in sleep that we haven't talked about so far is caffeine intake. So that's taking this in a different direction, but as nurses, that's something that we see especially at the high school level with some of those energy drinks and things like that. And
Yeah, that's a great segue into that conversation. You know, pop is one piece, but we have a lot of kids drinking coffee, more so I think now than we did when I was growing up anyway.
More options.
Yeah, there are more options and more fun, I guess, more fun flavors and things like that. Can that impact a student as well?
Absolutely, you know, and again, it's one of those things that you talk about in those visits, especially if sleep's an issue, talking about what their diet is, what they're taking in during the day, especially caffeine, and what they're drinking before bed, how late into the afternoon or evening they're having caffeine, how many servings of caffeine they may be having. All of those things I think play a huge role, especially if getting to sleep and staying asleep is becoming an issue for the kids. Generally, we see it more in the adolescent population, and so high school age children. But again, you know, I think we're seeing caffeine intake in younger and younger children. And so it's something that, you know, needs to be brought up. Sometimes it's something that the parents don't even recognize as an issue, or that they're even giving their children the caffeinated beverages that they just didn't even make that connection. And so being able to have that conversation and to shine light on it is usually a pretty easy thing for the children as well as the parents to address at home, and kind of assess that situation.
I know a lot of the, you know, the energy drinks, they are packed
yeah.
with sugar, with, you know, stimulant, caffeine, and, you know, some kids might think, oh, I need that. I need that. Does the body, it's kind of one of those things that once you have it, you feel like you can't do it without. I mean, it's the same thing like a cup of coffee. You have to have a cup of coffee first thing in the morning or you just can't function.
Right.
So how much of that is, you know, what does caffeine do to our bodies, and if we need to curb it back, how do you do that?
I mean, you can definitely classify caffeine as a drug, and so once you start taking it, your body feels the need to continue to have that. And so there are side effects as far as eliminating caffeine abruptly from the diet. It can cause rebound headaches and drowsiness and some other things in children. And so really trying to figure out, well, they tell you that they have one soda a day. Is that one 12-ounce can, or is that the 64-ounce? You know, big gulp from the gas station.
One. I only had one.
Yeah. So really identifying what one means can be a big qualifier as far as how big the issue is, and then deciding whether or not it's something that we can just take away, if it's something that we need to move to earlier in the day, or just trying to cut back. But yes, it absolutely can be something that your body craves, and so then you drink more of it and you drink more of it, and then it just becomes a cycle as far as trying to break that habit.
Right, and in the schools, we're not, during the school day, we don't have caffeinated beverages. We might have carbonated,
Right.
but not caffeinated, right?
Correct.
So we're making a commitment to making sure that what we have during the school day, but then, gosh, you have kids that have open lunch and the convenience store is right down the street. It's convenient. It's a convenience store, you know? And so we don't always have control, I guess is the word, over what those kids are choosing, especially the high school.
Very true. And that's
the
where
high school age.
Yes, I do. I have 2 high school aged kids. And so the one thing I've noticed too is very seldom is anything separate when there's like a sleep disorder or a problem. When it comes to that, it's usually connected to a lot of things, just those routines too. What's their study routine? Because if their routine is getting a big glass of some caffeinated drink to keep them up and to cram instead of studying over a little bit of period of time and those things, that is becomes their routine, and that's what they expect and that's what they think they need instead of getting that good night's sleep and then studying a little bit every day. And that's where I think parents, it's important to kind of identify what are their study routines, and for us as educators to teach those study routines. What's the best way to get the best capacity out of what you can do, and taking care of your body, and sleep is one of those things, definitely. And looking at what impacts your sleep, from routine to drinks, your health, activity, and then just time management too on top of it.
Well, that's a tough one. Time
Yeah, it
management.
is. So when you're young.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I've learned it yet. I'm not really sure that I have. So, what are some, those changes that we make? We often don't realize it's an issue until it's an issue, and we don't realize when we do have the good quality sleep. You feel good and there's no aches and pains, and you don't have the headache and all that other kind of thing. But you really do have to be intentional about what you're doing, and know that if you're feeling good, it's probably because you've taken the time to, create the routine. And sometimes we don't give enough credit to, all of the good things we have done. But that really does make a difference. To maybe just reflect on how why you're feeling good, or why this is a great day, why your mood is, better.
Right.
And that can really play into the health, the health overall as well.
Positive reinforcement goes a long way for lots of things, and so not only, positive reinforcement for the parents to let them know that they're doing a good job, but also positive reinforcement for the children, and for them to be able to identify, exactly like you said, that I feel good today, and that's because I did these other things, and if I continue to do those things, then this is how I will feel every day.
Right. So taking that time and just reflecting on the benefits of making the right choices, whether the choice is water to drink or early to bed, no electronics, those types of things, it really does matter. We're wrapping up on the end of our time. Any final thoughts you want to leave with parents about sleep and the importance of not only giving that routine to our children, but also modeling that as parents as well?
Absolutely. Just a reminder of how important it is to your overall health and how you feel and how you function. And we know as parents, when we don't get enough sleep and we're kind of running on empty, how you feel. I mean, that we just have to remember that our children are the same way, and so it's just so vitally important that they get the sleep that they need. So it's just important to remember that. One thing I didn't mention earlier that I think is important to mention, one of the ways in which we're teaching children how to have that good sleep pattern is through a partnership we have with Sanford, and we have a program called Fit Club in 8 of our elementary schools. And the premise of Fit Club is food, mood, move, and sleep. And so we talk about how all of those factors come together to make you the healthiest, best person you can be. And so that's just, and we've used that knowledge that we have and strategy and information in how we teach children. And So it's just important to keep all of those pieces together and remember how that affects the child.
And
for the better.
getting that information to them and the importance of it
Right.
as
At
elementary
at a young
students.
age, so they can start to identify themselves how they feel different. How do you feel different after you haven't had a good night's sleep versus when you have? And so that's just important for them, and they can use that as they grow. So.
Wonderful, great partnership there.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts from you?
Boy, I think modeling the way is always the way. So if parents could just model it, a lot of times kids will follow through with that when they see that. That's really important. So.
Yeah. And for you?
No, again, I think sleep can just be so important and can be so debilitating for so many different aspects of their daily routine and their daily lives. So that's really something for parents to just focus on and make sure that they, again, are modeling good behavior and providing a good, safe sleep environment for their children at home.
Right, and it's not something that takes a lot of time to develop that or really any money. It's quick and easy adjustments that can be made to the home situation to really change the positive attitude and the mood and the outcome of a child's day, of an adult's day. I mean, if your children are cranky, there's a good chance as an adult you're going to be frustrated as well. And so, really looking at the scenario, just taking the time to assess what's going on in your own house and figure out if adjustments need to be made to make everybody happier and healthier along the way. So, well, thanks to you all for joining us today for this topic. Hopefully, folks out there have learned a thing or two about sleep and will take the time to assess their own situation and make it better for everyone. Thanks for joining us on Positive Parenting.